Hello and welcome back to Retro Break. A few weeks ago I took a look at 15 of my favourite original Game Boy games, so join me today as I take a look at 15 of my favourite Game Boy Color games. Let's get started. So at number 15 here we have a very late release for the Game Boy Color. This game actually came out in 2001, which was after the Game Boy Advance was released, and I only found out about this through magazines at the time, Action GBX, which I've mentioned in the past, and that game is Toki Tori. It's had many spin-offs and sequels since. There was a game on WiiWare. I think there's even a game now on the Nintendo Switch, but this is where it all began. It's a very addictive, basic sort of platforming puzzle game, the sort of game that I really enjoy, and Capcom, I don't know whether Capcom actually made it or just published it, but whoever made it did a fantastic job. One of my favourite games on the system. Number 14, and you know it's a good system when a Mega Man game comes this high up in my top 15. This is Mega Man Extreme 1 and 2. These two games here are sort of remakes, sort of ports of Mega Man X 1 and 2 respectively for the SNES, and Capcom once again did a fantastic job downscaling the games to the 8-bit hardware. I think both of these games are incredible. They play really well, and they are a fascinating look into what Mega Man X might have been like if it came out on the NES or another 8-bit system. You really can't go wrong with either of the Mega Man Extreme games. They're very impressive for the console that they're actually running on, so highly recommended. If you're into Mega Man games, definitely check these two out. Number 13, and this is a game that I absolutely loved growing up, and it's one of Rare's forgotten games in my opinion. This is Conker's Pocket Tales for the Game Boy Color. I absolutely love this game, as I said. It's one of them games, just like Bubble Bobble Part 2 in the last video, that I would just play every single day after school. Really can't go wrong with it. If you like adventure games with very cute cartoony characters and a nice little story to go with it and amazing music, really nice graphics for the time, and if you played Conker's Bad Fur Day on the N64, don't expect anything like this. This is very much a kid-friendly action-adventure game, but I really love it, and it's definitely worth a look if you like Rare and if you want to check out one of their lesser-known games. Really, really good game. Number 12 now, and a game from a completely different genre. This one is R-Type DX. And this is actually one of the games that changes depending on whether you're playing it in a classic Game Boy or in a Game Boy Color. If you play it in the Game Boy Color, you get the extra DX mode, whereas if you play it in the original Game Boy, you only get R-Type 1 and 2. The DX mode is sort of a combination of the two games, and of course it's enhanced in glorious colour. It's one of the best ports of the game in my opinion, and at the time being able to play R-Type on the go was fantastic. Really great if you like your horizontal scrolling shoot-em-ups. Fantastic series, and it's a great port on the Game Boy. Number 11, and another game by Rare, one of my favourite games on the SNES, and an amazing port to the Game Boy Color. This is Donkey Kong Country. If you saw in my last video, I really love the Donkey Kong Land games, and this game builds off the same engine, and they really wanted to show off what they could do with the Game Boy Color, so they completely ported the original Donkey Kong Country from the SNES onto the Game Boy Color, and even included some stuff that wasn't in the SNES original. And as far as I remember, you could actually link this up to the Game Boy printer and print out some really cool Donkey Kong style graphics as well. Unfortunately, my printer's out of paper at the moment, else I would have shown some of them off. Now we're into the top 10, and I'm starting the top 10 off here with Pocket Bomberman. If you saw in my last video, Donkey Kong 94, this game kind of reminds me of that, in the fact that it's a very simple but extremely addictive single-screen puzzle platformer, one of my favourite game genres, and this game does it extremely well. The gravity in the game is kind of weird because you jump like a standard platforming game would, but the enemies just move on a grid like classic Bomberman, and the bombs actually act the same as they do in classic Bomberman as well. You sort of jump and you can actually put the bomb somewhere on the screen and it will actually stay in that position while you fall back down, so you just have to remember that the bomb might be up there somewhere and you might get hit by a blast. But once you get past the initial weirdness of the gravity of the game, and the controls take a little bit of getting used to, but once you get past that, it's a fantastic game, one of my favourites on the system, highly recommended. Number 9, and this is a more recent pickup. If you saw my video of Vintage Gamer in Birmingham, then you will have seen that I picked this one up here. This is Konami Classics Volume 2. And the entire reason why this one made the top 10 is because it includes Parodius, which is quite possibly my favourite shooting game series of all time, and it plays extremely well on the Game Boy Color. I do actually have here the original Japanese black and white version, but Konami did an amazing job at remastering it for the Game Boy Color. And as well as Parodius, you also get Block Game, which is actually a lot more fun than it sounds. You also get Track and Field, and you get Frogger as well, so a really nice collection, and a really great game to take with you on the Game Boy Color. And I would love to get the other games in the Konami Classics series at some point in the future, but they are getting kind of expensive. Next up here, and I couldn't have a top 10 Game Boy Color games without including Wario Land. There wasn't actually an original Super Mario game on the Game Boy Color, so the closest people got at the time was Wario Land 3, which is kind of an offshoot of the Mario Land series very far down the line. But this one is another fantastic entry into the Wario Land game series. This one in particular is a lot of fun because you can't die, which leads to some really hilarious moments where Wario gets squished. He gets squished, he gets set on fire, he gets stabbed, and you just have to carry on the levels. And all of these kind of weird things that happen to him become part of the puzzle of the levels. So it's a really great game, it's a really unique game, and it's definitely one of the best in the series in my opinion. Number 7, and I have mentioned this game before in the past when I was talking about some of my favourite puzzle games. This one is Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, the Game Boy Color counterpart to the N64 game Pokemon Puzzle League or Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. I can never remember the name of these sort of games. It's yet another take on the classic Tetris Attack or Panel de Pon games, which I've mentioned countless times on the channel at this point, so definitely go back and have a look at some of my previous videos where I've mentioned this game and some of the other ones in the series. Really highly recommended, and I really love the story mode that they added to this version. Now, how could I do a Game Boy episode without mentioning Tetris? This one here is Tetris DX, an amazing recolouring of the original Tetris game that was a launch title for the Game Boy. Of course, this one was going to sell like crazy, whatever they did, but they didn't just colorise the game, they actually included a few new modes, a few new multiplayer elements, and a leaderboard as well, so there's plenty to get excited about with this release. And I think they did a fantastic job with the colorisation, but apart from that, it is just classic Tetris. It is exactly what you'd expect, which is amazing, so highly recommended. Definitely go and pick it up if you have a Game Boy Color. So now we're down to the top 5, and I had an extremely difficult time putting these ones in order of my favourite. It's so hard. These 5 games here could all be number 1 for me, but I'm going to have to start number 5 with Pokemon Trading Card Game and Pokemon Trading Card Game 2. Quite possibly my most replayed game outside of Mario Land in the entire Game Boy series. Pokemon Trading Card Game is so good, and I really wish they did more trading card games like this. Unfortunately, the new one that they've got for the trading card online doesn't really have the same sort of feeling as these Game Boy originals. The second one here was a Japan exclusive, and it does carry the story on, so if you manage to get yourself a copy, definitely download a translation patch and do what I did and play it on the Retron 5, or put it on an Everdrive and play it on the Game Boy. But definitely recommend both of these games, they're highly addictive, and also if you don't have any friends who can play the trading card game with you, this is the next best thing. And I definitely had a lot of fun playing these back in the day, and still to this day I have a load of fun playing them. Now, number 4. This is pretty much an unheard of game, so I'm very happy to be showing this one off, and hopefully a lot more people will want to play it because of this. This is Wendy Every Witch's Way by Way Forward, and it's an amazing game, and I really wish more people would talk about it. Of course, if I had Shantae, that would probably be on this list as well, but unfortunately I only have it on the 3DS Virtual Console, so I couldn't show it off as a game that I actually own for the Game Boy Color, but in some ways I actually prefer Wendy Every Witch's Way. It's a much more simple game, but that sort of becomes part of its charm. The main gimmick in Wendy is the fact that you can switch the gravity on the fly, and it still plays just like a normal platformer, but say you're jumping over a pit, you can hold up and jump at the same time, and you'll flip up and land on the ceiling instead. It's such a good mechanic and it works really well. The levels are designed really well as well, and just the fact that the game is so simple, there's just a few collectibles, there's just a few power-ups, and it's straightforward getting from A to B. I really love it. It's one of the games that I go back to and I'm very happy to play all the way through to the end. Really recommend it, and maybe in the future I'll do a video just on this game, just to show just how good it is. And now we're down to the top 3, and I kinda cheated here because I included 2 games, and for the people in my previous video who were shouting, "Where's Link's Awakening?" Here it is, Link's Awakening DX. And this is the reason I didn't include it on my last video, is because I wanted to include the Game Boy Color version, because it is a great upgrade and it's the superior way of playing the game really. And you can also get it on the 3DS Virtual Console now for not as much as it is on cartridge anyway. And I also included here Oracle of Ages. I don't actually have Oracle of Seasons, else it would definitely be here somewhere to form a Triforce of Zelda Game Boy games. But you really can't go wrong with whatever 8-bit Zelda game you play, but these are 2 of the best. And I really need to get Oracle of Seasons at some point, very, very soon. So maybe at the next Expo that's going to be one that I'll pick up. But yeah, really love the Link's Awakening and the Oracle series, and I can't wait for the Link's Awakening remake on the Switch. It's going to be great. Even if I don't quite love the art style I went for, it's still a fantastic game, and I'm very happy that a lot more people are going to be able to experience it on a modern console. And now there's 2 games left. I'm sure you can guess what one of them is, but maybe this one will come as a bit of a surprise. It's another game that I used to play every single day. It is Dragon Warrior Monsters and Dragon Warrior Monsters 2. Basically Enix's version of Pokemon, and I think they did a fantastic job. In some ways I actually prefer these 2 games over the original Pokemon games. I know that's quite crazy, but I absolutely love the Dragon Warrior Monsters games, and I was very, very disappointed that the Dragon Warrior Monsters remake for the 3DS never came out in the UK. I was so upset about that it stayed a Japan exclusive. All we got was the Monsters Joker games for the DS, which really aren't anywhere near as good as these originals. There's just something about these games that really makes them special to me. It might be the different atmosphere that the game goes with. You basically traverse in different worlds and you raise the monsters. There's a lot more to do with actually looking after the creatures and entering them in tournaments and things, compared to Pokemon, which is more straightforward, just defeat the gyms in a certain order and level them up. There's a lot more going for these games, I think, and I really love them, and I'd really like to go back and play them again very soon. And of course, number 1, I don't know where the rest of these games have gone, but I do have all 3 of them, and the one here doesn't actually have a cover for whatever reason. So I will show these boxes that came with the 3DS Virtual Console releases. This is Pokemon Gold, Silver and Crystal. I think these are perhaps the best games in the entire series. They're certainly the longest, and I think they have the best atmosphere as well. The music, the graphics, the build up to these games before they were released, the new Pokemon that are introduced in them, just everything about these games is amazing. And they're definitely games that I've been back to and played countless times, and they're still really well regarded in the Pokemon community, and in my own list of Pokemon games they're right up there with the best of the best. But I won't spoil that. I'm definitely going to be doing a Pokemon top 10 or top 15 in the future, so definitely look forward to that. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed picking the games out for this list. Let me know what other top 15 game systems you'd like me to do videos on in the future. Definitely leave a comment below with some of your favourite Game Boy Color games, and I'll see you next week for another episode. Goodbye.